Today we're going to review the 5 best early game heroes to invest in Dragonheir Silent Gods so that you don't waste your precious scrolls. In fact, when deployed correctly, even rare and epic heroes can compete with legendary rarity heroes. But before we begin, allow me to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is the makers of Dragonheir Silent Gods. In fact, Dragonheir Silent Gods has already achieved over 5 million downloads within less than a month since the global launch, and it's ranked #1 for its category, and is now available to download from Steam, Epic Games, Android, iOS, and Mac, and there's even a ton of holiday-themed events that you can play. For example, right now we've got a bunch of Halloween events, bundles, and rewards just for logging in. So what are you waiting for? Download using the link in the description and start playing Dragonheir Silent Gods today. Now, before we review the 5 heroes that are, in my opinion, some of the very best early game hero investments, I do want to give a quick honorable mention to 3 heroes that are really good if you do in fact pull them from summons. These 3 heroes are Meggan, the Necrosis support, Usha, the frost damage dealer, and Anna, who is a lightning support. I'll cover them a little bit more in depth as I talk about the 5 heroes that I am going to recommend, but even though they don't make this top 5, they are just such great enablers. They are worth mentioning. So if you're lucky enough to get one of those, you probably should be using them. So in the early game, you're given a bunch of different heroes to try out, and especially starting off in the Chaos Universium, which kind of acts as a tutorial area. You can learn the game and the mechanics, but surprisingly, a couple of heroes that you start off with are actually really good, even into the mid-game. So we're going to review these 5 heroes in no particular order, and you should level them up equally so no one hero is left behind. So let's start with the first hero, and that first hero is Heksandra. And man, she is a busted good healer. A lot of activities like dungeons and fights in this game are going to require dedicated and consistent healing. It's the backbone of your team. Not only that, but she's actually a poison healer. So she's going to work extremely well in the fire poison affinity that we're going to be bringing up later in this video. You are not going to be disappointed scrolling and leveling up Heksandra because she is super important in keeping your team alive, especially in harder encounters and higher tier dungeons that you're gonna need to compete in to get better gear. Now, she'll also keep your heroes at max hit points in things like the story missions, so you don't need to worry about using tonics to heal them after every single fight. And although it won't matter much until you get epic gear, if you wanted to see the type of gear and stats that you should prioritize on Heksandra, click the skill and then the details to see what her abilities benefit from. As you can see here, her healing battle skill is actually scaling with attack and enlightenment. So we want attack percentage, we want base attack, we want enlightenment stats on her. So although, if you had HP or resist or defense, those would be fine. Those main stats you want are attack and enlightenment. Definitely be on the lookout for each of these hero recommendations, the stats that they benefit the most from. Now, the second hero on the list, and this might feel like a little bit of the cop-out, is actually you, the Traveler. And it might feel like a cop-out, but the thing is, the Traveler is absolutely crucial. This character that you play as, sometimes, you call it the MC or the main character, is extremely versatile. In fact, you can change your elemental affinity, and this hero will pretty much carry you for quite a while in the game until you get more specialized heroes that do specific things. So the main benefit of using the Traveler is that versatility. Remember, in this game, you're not just crafting like one team that carries you through everything, but rather you're going to have at least 2 or 3 solid teams to tackle different types of battles. For example, and this is where some of our honorable mentions are going to come into play, but certain dungeons require you to be equipped for different buffs or debuffs or mechanics. Like, let's have a look at the fire domain as an example. In the fire domain, you get hit with a burn debuff, and then the boss's ultimate ability is going to do more damage based on the number of stacks of burn that are on you. So for this encounter, you really want heroes that can cleanse. For example, Anna, who clears debuffs off the entire team before the boss does their ultimate. But back to the Traveler's versatility, in a dungeon like the Fire Domain, you could actually opt for his Ice Affinity, which allows him to make your team tankier with his shields. Or if you already have other healers in play like Heksandra and a cleanser like Anna, you can just focus on dealing raw damage with the Traveler. And you can use him in the Fire Affinity to kill the boss quicker. So the Traveler really allows you to focus on 4 other heroes that you rotate around, and your Traveler you just work on consistently throughout, at least in the early game. On the Traveler, you're going to primarily want just attack percentage and base attack, or crit rate and crit damage. Those are probably the best things you could pull down for the Traveler. So number 3 on our list, again in no particular order, is Horrus. And Horrus is a fire tank that everyone in the game gets for free simply by playing, and you can collect him from your daily login rewards on the 3rd day. And you can access this from the event page. If you just scroll down, it's called the Daily Check-In. Very easy. Horrus is a busted tank that will actually carry your fire poison team for most of the story gameplay, and is really good for some higher stages of dungeons where you're going to be able to get your better gear. Horrus is really useful for his captain skill, or aura, which is giving you 24% hit points to your whole team in any fight, making them much more tanky, which is crucial in the harder stages of dungeons where you might be worried about getting one-shot. His passive, however, makes him have a good chance to get a huge shield whenever he takes damage. So when you pair this with his ultimate, which gives him damage reduction and hit recovery, pretty much means that he's getting healed whenever he's tacked for 5 seconds. He is a very powerful tank. Now, another thing that people tend to overlook with him, though, is his battle skill. Not only does it do good damage, but it has a chance to inflict an attack penalty too, which is a massive debuff, especially in the later dungeon stages. A dungeon we could look at, for example, is the Grave of Venom, which, in my opinion, is the easiest of the 3 grave dungeons. And being able to get Stage 7 further into your story will let you start working on legendary gear. So the sooner you can clear that, the faster you can progress through other things in the game. Horrus is really good here because he's able to tank the Harpy and help with the 2 wisps near him simultaneously. And this dungeon, more specifically Stage 7 and above, will need a balance of really good healing and shielding in order to sort of handle the damage but still kill the boss in time. And the great thing about Horrus is that he's a fire affinity, so we can use him with Heksandra and the Traveler, and there you've got a 3 affinity bonus off rip, which is so good. If you're looking for stats to put onto Horrus, I'm going to recommend either flat or percent-based hit points or flat or percent-based defense boosts, since those really scale nicely for him and just make him more tanky. Resistance is, of course, also a good option if you wanted to get some resist against some of the debuffs you think you might be facing. Now, at this point, by the way, we've got a tank, a healer, and a DPS. So we can fill in these 5 hero recommendations with some supports. And even though I'm calling them support heroes, they can still do massive damage and some crazy debuffs. So for this spot, I'm going to recommend either Irina or Sigrid as the last 2 best early hero investments. And although Irina is a lightning affinity, meaning she's not going to get the affinity bonus for your fire poison combo, which is the rest of the team we've been talking about here, her kit is just so amazing it doesn't matter. Which is also something I like about this game, that like you don't have to move all in on the 5x for affinity, right? So her passive is going to give her a shield to the nearest ally. Her battle skill has an AoE chain lightning that does great damage. And lastly, her ultimate not only does an insane amount of lightning damage, it does an attack penalty too, which, like we brought up earlier, is super useful against bosses that otherwise run the risk of just wiping your board or one-shotting heroes. Now, Sigrid, on the other hand, is a poison damage dealer, and she pairs really nicely with the other heroes that we've been talking about, and she can spread a lot of debuffs. She pairs with Hex, the Traveler, Horrus. Basically, anyone she's going to share poison and fire affinity with is going to be good, but after every kill on a debuffed enemy, 25% of her ultimate energy recharges, and her ultimate is no freaking joke. 820% attack, scaled poison damage to every single enemy that has a debuff on them. Meanwhile, she's going to put the healing prohibition onto them, which cancels all healing on hero entirely. Now look, hey, look, I played a Mortal Strike Warrior back in the day in World of Warcraft, okay? And like cutting healing is a big deal. We know this. In addition, there's also the attack penalty too. So her kit is busted, all right? Now, I did mention another healer that would be potentially in the honorable mentions, and that's Meggan. Meggan is a great healer, but she is of the Necrosis affinity. So if you were to sort of look at the Frost and Necro lineup, she'd be a great replacement for Heksandra down the line, or if that's a route you wanted to go earlier. And speaking of the Frost affinity, that last hero I wanted to give that honorable mention to was Usha. And Usha does insane damage, doing one of the highest damages dealt of any rare hero in the game. But she's really reliant on a Frost enabler. So if this is something you're going to do, you probably want to have another hero in your lineup that is going to apply the Frost debuff so that she can do more damage. And while she can do that herself, her damage is way more consistent if you have someone else also helping apply Frost debuffs to more targets. For example, in the epic tier, you could bring in Rava. So if you happen to summon some of the other great Frost enablers, you're going to absolutely love stacking Usha in that lineup with attack speed and high attack gear to do some serious work. These 5 hero investments and these 3 honorable mentions that I described are going to give you an incredible start in Dragonheir Silent Gods. These heroes can carry you through the mid game if you really need to, as you grow your roster and expand your ability to field different specialized teams. And if you're not already playing Dragonheir Silent Gods, consider using that link in the description to download the game. Doing so supports the channel, and a big thank you again to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video. The game is available on Steam, Epic Games, Mac, iOS, Android, and it's cross-platform, so your progress carries over whether you're playing at home on your PC or you're out and about playing on your smartphone, which is the way I primarily play mobile games these days. But this is not merely a mobile game. So anyways, download link is in the description if you want to check that out. Alternatively, if you want to check out some other videos I've made about Dragonheir Silent Gods, I did over 200 summons. Card will be in the end screen for that video. Alternatively, if you want to check out my top 5 new player mistakes, things that I was doing at the very start of the game, card will be in the end screen as well for that one. I hope you'll check it out.